All right, welcome back to another episode of Matters of the Heart and Soul podcast. Today we have a very special guest and a good friend of mine, Mr. Roger Bruce. And let's go ahead and jump right into his biography so you guys can get to know this gentleman here. Roger was born in Harlem, New York, 1953. He attended Catholic and public schools through eighth grade. He attended the St. Emma Military Academy. This school is now part of the history stored in the Smithsonian Institute. He graduated after serving as the battalion executive officer and company commander, demonstrating leadership skills at a very early age of his life. He then went on to graduate from Morehouse College, where he majored in political science. He was the first of his family to attend and finish college. As a student, not only did he succeed academically, but displayed great concern for his fellow students and the next generation of students. He was the president of the Political Science Club and reinstituted the Frederick Douglass Tutorial Institute to help struggling high school students and help them prepare for college. During college, he was an intern for the former Atlanta Mayor Maynard Jackson at the law firm of Jackson, Patterson, Parks, and Franklin. He's married to Angela, who is an educator. They have 3 children, Andrea, Brandon, Ariel, along with 4 grandchildren. Roger is the District 61 House representative for the state of Georgia. He was first elected in 2003. Yeah, that's big. That's 20 years right there.
Yeah.
2003, and he was reelected every 2 years since then. During his time in office, Bruce has focused on issues relating to children with special needs, the aging, education, working families, economic development, voting rights, and criminal justice. Welcome to the platform.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, Roger, we could talk all day about politics. 20 years, you've done a lot of great things. You've seen a lot of great things and some bad things.
Oh, yeah.
Met a lot of people. But today, what we want to do is delve into Roger, the person.
Okay.
We want to get to know who Roger Bruce is. So, Roger, you grew up in Harlem. What was it like growing up in Harlem?
I was born in Harlem, and I was back and forth between the Bronx, where my aunt lived, and Harlem, where my mother and my siblings lived. It was an interesting time. I caught pneumonia when I was when I was first born. I was about 2 years old, really. And when I was born, I was the 5th child to my mother and father. And at the time that I was born, my mother was 22 years old when I was born, and I was the 5th child. And but I caught pneumonia when I was 2. And the doctor's office was in the same building where my aunt lived, my mother's sister. And so they sent me over there to be close to the doctor. And then when I recovered and got well, I don't know this to be a fact, but I'm just assuming that my mom and my aunt got together and said, well, you have 5, I don't have any, I'm gonna keep them, or something to that effect. And I ended up living with my aunt from that point. And so I was back and forth between the Bronx and Harlem. And then when I was, about 12, 13, I started asking questions, why am I not living with my mother? Why am I not living with my siblings? And I just didn't understand. And so my aunt said, well, go on over there. If you want to live with them, go on. And I went over there, and I think I was there maybe 6 months, and I called my aunt and wanted to know if I could come back. Things were not as I thought they would be. And her position was, well, you made a decision, now live with it. My aunt was a very wonderful woman. She really, really was. And she had me she said, just stay. And I started rebelling. I started doing things that I would never have done under my aunt's supervision. My aunt was a corrections officer. She worked for the Women's House of Detention. And so I would not have done certain things. But I started playing hooky from school, and which was kind of weird because I play hooky from school and go to the library and read. I didn't play hooky and do bad stuff. And I play hooky. I go to the library. I would read. I read a lot. And but back then, kids played. If you remember, we would go out. We'd be on the street playing basketball. We were playing stickball and all kinds. We were out playing. And one day we were outside the school that I was going to, and apparently somebody put some drugs in my bag, and my school bag, and I didn't know that they did it. And we were back in the cafeteria, and I saw police coming in. I don't know, something just inside me said, they look like they're coming towards me. And so I grabbed my bag and I saw what was in there. And I took it out and I threw it across the room. And somebody thought that I accidentally dropped it and picked it up and brought it back to me while the police were standing there. And so they took me to the principal's office, and they were clear. They knew that it wasn't mine. And they said that they knew who put it in my bag. And they wanted me to testify against this person. But I didn't see the person put it in my bag. And so I was not going to stand there and say that I saw it because I didn't see it. I just knew it wasn't mine. And I called my aunt, and like I said, she worked for the Department of Corrections, and she talked to them, and they let me go. But it was at that point that my aunt said, okay, we got to do something because we don't want you to go down that path. And so when I was 5 years old, I got hit by a car. The local numbers guy, I don't know if you remember the days, back then they had the numbers runner.
Yeah, we had in my neighborhood.
Yeah, but he hit me with a car, and we went through the whole lawsuit thing, and they had put some money aside that I was supposed to get when I was 21. And my aunt asked me about going to talk to a judge to see if the judge would give it to me when I was 14. To be able to go away to school. And I agreed to that, and that's what we did. I don't know how she found St. Emma Military Academy, but that's where she said, that I needed to go. And so I paid my way through the military school with the money that I was supposed to get when I was 21. And when I got to Virginia, it was kind of an interesting thing because they wanted me to do the 9th grade over again because I kept playing hooky while I was in New York. And I think out of 8 classes, I got 8 zeros because I didn't go to class.
Like
but
the whole time, or like partially, or like how much school did you actually miss?
I didn't go,
Wow.
so I got zeros, because I wasn't there. And but like I said, I would play hooky and go to the library and read. So I was up to speed on whatever they were going to teach me, because it was kind of like self-taught, going to the library. And so I talked to the commandant of cadets at the school. I guess that's where my negotiating skills started getting developed. And I said, look, I don't want to do the ninth grade over again. I didn't want to not be with my age group. And so we agreed that I would do the ninth grade and the 10th grade at the same time. And if I passed all the classes, then I would go to the 11th grade appropriately. And that's what I did. And I passed everything, ended up in the right grade with my, age group, with my counterparts. And not only that, I ended up in leadership positions. Like I said, I ended up being the battalion executive officer, which is the number 2 position in the battalion. I was a company commander, C Company. And, so you develop the leadership skills there at this school. And while we were going through it, we didn't realize the historic significance of the school. It was an all-Black school for boys, Catholic military, which was kind of weird, because by day they were teaching us to love our neighbor, and at night how to kill him. So it was an interesting thing. And the school was located on top of a mountaintop that was once where they had slaves. And the other side, it was another mountaintop that had an all-girls school, St. Francis. It was all Black female school. And the James River ran between the 2 mountaintops. And we would be able to see, the Ku Klux Klan and whatever down there. They were burning their crosses and acting crazy. They didn't come up to the school. They knew we had guns. It was a military school. But we went through all of that. And I was the guidance counselor at the school. I actually applied to go to Michigan State University. And I have no idea, as I think back on it, why Michigan State. It must have been something at the time that made me want to do it. And the guidance counselor sent my Michigan State application to Morehouse here in Atlanta. So Michigan never heard of me, and Morehouse said, "Come on." And after I started looking at things, I said, "Okay, that sounds good." And I came to Atlanta. And I think I was here maybe a week or 2, and Morehouse had a program where they would bring speakers in to motivate the students and to get us pumped up, about being successful. And they had a guy come in, and he was saying things that I'd never heard a Black man say, encouragement kind of things. I didn't grow up with my father. And most of the people in Harlem, my aunt wasn't married, so it wasn't even a stepfather. And most of the people in Harlem lived in the projects. And back then, I was told that if there was a man in the house, you probably couldn't get the public assistance that you needed. And so I just never heard a Black man say what I heard this guy say. Most of the men that I knew as I was growing up, they were alcoholics. They just drank themselves into oblivion. So again, to hear the kind of things that I was hearing, I was really pumped up. I was excited about it. And I went up and I introduced myself to the guy, and turns out his name was Maynard Jackson. And I didn't know, he wasn't the mayor at the time. But he had a law firm. He was part of a law firm, Jackson, Patterson, Parks, and Franklin. And he offered me an opportunity to come work there as in the law firm, which I did. And then he decided he was going to run for mayor. I was very involved in his campaign, organized students in the Atlanta University Center in support of him. We even did a mock election, to make sure that we could get the students excited about what was going on. So we did that, and he became mayor, and one thing led to another. But he was part of the reason why I decided to major in political science, because I felt like the things that he was doing were things that I could be doing and should be doing. So he was a lot of the motivation for me. And then there was a guy that was running for governor back then. His name was J.B. Stoner. And J.B. would tell people that he was going to get rid of crime in Georgia because he was going to send niggas back to Africa. And as if we were the root of all crime. And, so all of those things.
Another reason for that, we could talk about that and a lot did go, but
yeah. So all of that, kind of got me to where I am. I know that was a long answer to your question, but
no, that's amazing. Some of the questions I had, you actually answered because I wanted to know who were the male influences in your life, based upon the way that you came up.
He was one, the commandant of cadets at military school was a Black priest. And, back then you didn't see a whole lot of Black priests either. And, but he was a Black priest, and he was, his name was Father Figaro, Egbert J. Figaro. And he was a huge influence, because he put me in leadership positions. He decided who was going to be officers and, who was going to be running, the different companies and things like that. And he put me in leadership positions, and that's a lot of responsibility at a young age. As a teenager, to be responsible, it was about 40 or 50 other students under my command, and to have that responsibility as a teenager, that was huge. And so all of those things, and then coming down to Morehouse. And having an opportunity to get into leadership roles here as well. It was just amazing, and I think a lot of it too, with not having a father or male images in my life, as I met men that were doing positive things, it made me feel like, okay, don't follow the route that my father was, but follow the route that I wish my father was, and be all the things to others that my father was not to me.
Wow.
And that's how I've lived my life. And I'm not faulting my father, because whatever, I don't know what his life was like.
Exactly.
I really didn't know. I knew who he was, but I didn't know him. And so I don't know what took place in his life to cause him to be the way he was. So I try not to judge him, but I also said I didn't want to be like him. I wanted to be the opposite. And that's how I've lived.
It's kind of funny that you say that, because I kind of grew up the same way. Mother and father split up. I don't even recall living in the same house with him, so it had to happen before, I'd say maybe 3.
Right.
It happened around 3. But I said the exact same thing you said, because we only have 2 choices. We could be bitter or better.
Right.
And I just said I never wanted my kids to feel what I felt like.
Right.
And I was somewhat anal, like, because he never attended any of my sporting events. I played high school and college basketball. We went to the state championship, and I'm a junior. I carry his name, so and he was right in the same city,
right,
living in a different home.
So you can appreciate what I'm saying, man.
Yeah, exactly. Everything that you're saying, I totally resonate with. And I just hope that a lot of other young men out there who hear this story is like, we don't use that as a excuse to say, well, my father wasn't around. I didn't have role models, because.
But you knew what you wanted.
Yeah.
So
you. So what advice would you give to young men out there who seem to be lost? Because like a large percentage of them now end up in prison. They say like at least 70+% of the men in prison didn't have a male role model in the home. So what would you say to these young men?
I would encourage them to find someone, if they could, find someone that fits the image that they want. Everybody knows what makes them feel good or what makes them feel bad. And if what you were exposed to made you feel bad, then don't continue that. Don't use that as an excuse. Somebody did it to me, so now I'm going to do it to you. You don't want to do that. You want to say, I'm going to be the opposite. I'm going to do all the things for other people that I wish someone had done for me. I'm going to do all the things for my children that I wish my father had done for me. And again, you don't want to be judgmental. I don't. Again, because you don't know what's going on in people's heads. But if you see bad behavior, do what you can to change that behavior. If you see somebody that's stressed out, that's on drugs or some sort of path that is not good, do what you can to help them, go down a different path. And don't let others, because there's this tendency to say that, you are judged by the company that you keep. And I think that's a bad statement, because sometimes the company you keep is the company that really needs you to be there to help them out of whatever situation they're in. And, without mentioning anybody, somebody that I've done that with, that I've worked with this individual to try to help get him going down a different path, than the one that he was going down. And you got to help people. You can't just turn your back, and you can't act like it doesn't exist, because it does. And if you can save one person, then you've done something.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that. One of the things, I have this ongoing question that I like to ask a lot of people. Like, I have a men's group page on social media, and I always ask the question, like, when does a boy become a man if there's no rites of passage? We've lost a lot of things as a people through the Atlantic slave trade, our culture, our history totally being erased, and trying to put the pieces back together. I think we lost a lot of that, like the passing of the baton. And just conversations like this, like where you have the generational levels, and we pass the wisdom and information down. Like, I look at you as a mentor, and I could take and receive information from you that I could apply to my life, that I could pass down to the next generation, and then they're responsible.
I appreciate that. But something that you said, we have all of these different organizations, fraternities, sororities, and again, not judging those things, but those sororities and fraternities, are they really passing on our history? They're passing on the Greek, history, and some of the things that were formed in those organizations back when. I think and I don't know how to do this, but we need our own version of Greek organizations, our own versions that pass our history on. I wish you'd, come to my house, because I've got a picture. I can't show it to you because I can't pick up my computer and take it there, but it's back in the day, you had the elders that would sit with the children and talk to the children about, their culture and about their history, and teach the children.
The griots.
Huh?
Griots.
Yeah. And and that was their job, was to teach the next generation. And we need to do that. We need to have, sessions and, where we just sit and listen to the elders talk. We don't do that anymore.
No.
And a lot of our kids have absolutely no idea about the history. And if you think about it, when we were younger, families were closer. We all lived in pretty much close proximity, and you knew who your cousins were. You had relationships with your cousins. Nowadays, everybody's spread out all over the country, and I would bet that there are people who don't know their cousins, first cousins. They may know who they are, but they have no relationship with them, and that's not good. We got to figure out a way to bring families back together.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. I'm sure the listening audience see that we both share the Bruce surname, and that is part of the way that we came together. We had a mutual friend that had an event, and he was speaking, and when they introduced him as Roger Bruce, I'm like, I need to ask him, who's his people? Where are your people from? And that's how we came together. I had been knee deep into researching my genealogy and searching for my ancestors over the past few years. And currently helping Roger, we're trying to connect the dots to see where we're connected. And, a lot of things, like a lot of these Bruces came through Virginia. And
yeah.
Like your
mine came through Tennessee. But my mother's family came through Virginia.
Right. But also, like, in studying the Bruces who were in Tennessee, they came there in the late 1800s.
Okay.
From Virginia.
Okay. So there's connection still.
Yeah. So by the time we finish that off, we'll find that they were back in Virginia, and 9 times out of 10, they were all connected. And one of the biggest, I guess, misnomers would be that we all think that these are slave names, when in fact they're not. That you had a lot of these people who came with these names or were already here with these names. And that's another story. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Okay. Well, I'm curious to hear about the research that you've done. I think it's important, like I said, for us to understand and know our history, because we were taught that we were not capable of doing a lot of things. That was what we were taught. And I taught my kids, don't let anybody tell you what you can't do. I would tell anybody's kids, nobody can set your limitations for you. You set your own limitations. And that's it.
Yeah.
I had an episode that about that was brought home to me, when I had a blood vessel burst and ended up in a coma. And when I came out of the coma, I had a lot of things going wrong. I couldn't read. I knew what an A was, I knew what a B was, but I couldn't put the sounds together to create the words to read. So I had to learn how to read all over again. And one of the things, I was going through something that they called deja vu syndrome, which I had never heard of prior to that, where I could see my wife walk out of a room. I didn't see her walk back in, but I saw her walk out again. Things just kept repeating over and over and over, and until something else happened, and then that would repeat over and over and over. And my son was graduating from high school when all of this was going on, and by that point I had been elected, and people were asking me to speak at his graduation, and I couldn't write out. It was weird. I could write, but I couldn't read what I wrote. And what I wrote was grammatically correct. It was fine, but I couldn't read it after I wrote it. So I couldn't write out a speech to give at his graduation, and I was hesitant about doing it. And when I got out of the hospital, I had a little tube that was still there. It was draining fluid and all this kind of stuff. And so anyway, my son came to me and he said, "Dad, I hear mommy telling you you can't do this speech. I hear your friends telling you you can't do this speech. And if you don't want to do it, I'm okay with that. But if you're not doing it because mommy said you can't do it, or because your friends say you can't do it, then you haven't been telling me the truth, because you told me nobody could set my limitations but me." So he threw it back in my face. And so I went to my wife and I told her about it. And what we agreed to is that she would sit somewhere where I could see her. And if I was going off the deep end saying something crazy, then she would just give me one of those and I know to shut up and sit down. And to this day, I can't tell you what I said. I don't remember. But she never gave me the signal, and people reacted as if what I said was fine. And I didn't let my son down. And that was what was most important to me, is that I lived up to what I was preaching to him, is don't let other people set your limitations.
That's good. And, he held you to your own standard.
That's it. And I was proud that he did it. And I'm glad he did it. About 9 months later, it was like my brain just rebooted, and I was able to continue doing some of the things that I was doing before. I still had to go through different training and different things to get where I was, but I never stopped. I got reelected that same year because some of my colleagues, went out and they campaigned and they worked real hard for me. But the reality is that, I didn't give up, and it was my kids that put it in my head, don't tell us something and don't live to it yourself. And so I felt very good about that.
Good stuff. So you've held your position for 20 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your reelection occurs every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
What would you contribute to the success and the longevity?
I think probably the top thing is that you tell people the truth. If you tell people the truth, you don't have to remember what you said, because the truth doesn't change. And I think that's what people were looking for more than anything else, was just somebody who was going to be honest with them. They didn't have to agree with what the truth was. They didn't even have to like it. But if they were not able to show that what I said was not the truth, then that was what they were looking for. They wanted the truth. I think also is that people wanted to have someone that was going to speak up for them and listen, listen to them. Again, people, you don't have to agree with everything, but if you listen and you do the best you can to implement those things that make sense and that are good, people will continue to put you there. Unfortunately, things have just changed a lot. Back when I first got elected, there were really some strong issues that people were dealing with. And we are still now, but you got voting rights. You had a lot of instances where segregation was still very clear. Black people were not being treated the same. We had limited employment opportunities, opportunities to grow in the places where you worked. My first job out of Morehouse was with the telephone company. And they sent me to Macon, Georgia. That was the first assignment. And, from Harlem, New York, Bronx, New York to Macon, Georgia, that was a transition. And but they had me at the phone company, and when I got down there, they didn't have any Black employees in the areas where I was, and had never had them. And they had just passed the laws back then saying that you had to promote African Americans, and you had to equalize your workforce. And you remember all of that, I'm sure too. And but they didn't have anybody in Macon to promote. And so they sent me, I didn't know this at the time, but they sent me there so that they could promote me. So I was there maybe 3 months, and they called me and said, you've been doing a great job, wonderful job. So now we're going to promote you to management, and you're going to be the manager over this office. And I was like, something didn't feel right, about this. I hadn't been there that long. And I was in Macon, which was a very racist town at the time. And I said, these people are gonna kill me. That's just how I felt. And he called me into the office, and they had the room set up like a horseshoe. And all of the employees sitting around the table, and I'm sitting at the bottom of the table with him. His name was Dixie Walker. That was the guy's name that was over the office. And J.D. Dixie Walker. And it's amazing what you can remember. I remember that guy's name all those years ago. And he asked me if I had anything I wanted to say after he said all these wonderful things about me. But while he was saying it, it registered in my head what was going on. And so he asked me if I had anything to say, and I said, yeah. And I told the folks who were sitting there, I said, look, all that stuff that he just said, I haven't been here long enough for him to come to those conclusions. He was looking at me like, oh, hell, what is he ready to say? I said, but there's laws that have been passed that said that we have to equalize the workforce. And there are no Black people. If you look around this room, there's no Black people to promote. I was the only one. But if not for that law, I would have never had an opportunity to show you that I can do all of the stuff that he just said. I haven't been here long enough, but I can do everything he said. I can do it. And I'm going to need you to work with me so that we could do it. And as we do that, then I'm going to be setting the opportunity for you to be able to grow in this company as well. And I could feel some of the tension, easing out of the room when I said that. And what was funny, this lady came up to me afterwards, and she said, I'm going to be indispensable to your success here. And I wasn't sure whether she was saying she was going to help me, or whether, I couldn't tell what she was really saying. But as she continued to talk, it was like, I'm going to be indispensable, and I'm going to expect you to do this for me. And if you don't do these things for me, then you're not going to be successful, because I'm not going to help you. So it came clear what she was saying. And I had remembered a test that someone had told me about for indispensability. I don't know if you ever heard this test or not.
No.
But I went and got a cup of water, and I told her, I said, look, let's imagine that this cup is our team. This is all of us here together. And I put some water in the cup. And I said, this water represents all of us. We are in this together. We're in this cup. We're in it together. And I said, now put your finger in that water. And I said, mix it up real good, because I want to make sure that everybody on the team knows that you are here. and that you're a part of it. And she did. And I said, when I take your finger out of the water, I said, the size of the hole that you left in that water shows how indispensable you are to this team. And as you know, there was no hole in that water. And I didn't have no more trouble out of her.
She got the picture.
She got the point. And then they left me there for about a year after that. And then they sent me to Griffin, Georgia. Same scenario all over again.
All the big metropolitan areas.
Yeah. Eventually I got back to Atlanta. And I stayed with that company for about 5 or 6 years, about 6 years. And what made me leave was they were having a training program. And they, again, I was moving through the ladder. I mean, they were promoting me left and right. And I got to a position where I was selling the large telephone systems, but they call it PBXs. But back then, you couldn't go through the training. I mean, you couldn't sell them if you didn't go through the training. And they wouldn't put me through the training to sell the biggest items that they had. And that's how you made your money, by selling the bigger items. And they wouldn't put me through the training. They would bring white men in, they put them through the training, and they were out doing all the stuff that needed to be done. And so one day I found a company and I went and I talked to them about this equipment. I went through the books, I learned about the equipment. Basically, I trained myself on that equipment. And I decided I was going to go out and I was going to sell one of these things without the training. And I told my supervisor, when I left that morning, I told my supervisor what I was going to do. And he was like, "Nah, you can't do that." And I said, "Well, that's what I'm going to do." And I went out and I talked to this company. And I had actually already talked to them. So I knew they were going to buy it. And I took the contract out there and I got them to sign the contract. And when I came back to the office, my supervisor had told his supervisor what I was doing, and they were ready to tear me up when I got back in there. They didn't know I had the contract signed in hand, ready to go. And they called me everything but a child of God and all this other stuff. And when they got through, I mean, I'm laughing inside the whole time. And when they got through, the last words that I remember them saying is that I probably cost them all of this money because now that was a client that was never going to buy the equipment because I went out there without the training. And then I said, well, I took the contract out of my pocket and handed it to them. And I said, "I think you're wrong. I think they are going to buy it because here's the contract." And a couple of days later, they sent me through the training.
Wow.
But that's what you had to do. I mean, you had to be defiant. But they sent me through the training. And I stayed for a little while longer. But then they had a class that they wanted all of the managers, the Black managers, to go to. And they had hired some guy from IBM back then. You remember IBM was the big company.
Yeah.
But they hired somebody from IBM to teach Black managers how to have a relationship with their white counterparts. And which I thought was kind of crazy to even have something like that. But in the class, they asked, if you, as a Black manager, if you bring white colleagues to your house, what should you serve them for dinner? And the answer was whatever they eat. And I was like, okay. And they said, now, if you go to a white manager's house for dinner, what should you expect? And the answer was whatever they served. I went ballistic. I went crazy. And I just that was it. It was time to go. And I decided to leave and went somewhere else. And but that's what it was.
That's interesting. So let's move along here because we're getting close to wrapping this thing up. If looking back at your life, you've accomplished a lot, you've done a lot. What would you say is your greatest accomplishment?
My greatest accomplishment, I think, is my children. Hang on, let me get stop that. My children, um, I've been married now for almost 40 years. And that's rare, as you know.
Big time.
And, so being able to maintain my family, being able to, with my wife, I give her credit for a lot of this, to raise our children. Both of them have finished college. One went to Howard, one went to Hampton. I tried to get them to Morehouse and Spelman, but they were like, we won't do that. But anyway, they did finish, and both of them are doing very, very well. Both of them are their mindset is on being successful and helping others. So I feel good that I was able to pass that on to them. Because I wanted to start the trend. It didn't start with my father, so I wanted to start it. And hopefully they will pass it on to their children. And at some point, historically, we'll be able to look back at our family and say, we all worked together, we all helped each other, and we helped others in the process too. That's what I feel good about.
Another thing would be looking back at your life. If you had to do it all over again, if anything, what would you do different?
I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing. When I look back on my life, it wasn't like I planned all of the things that did happen. Circumstances presented themselves, and I reacted and responded to those circumstances. And I think you might have said at some point you have two choices. Whenever something is presented to you, you could either do something good with it or something bad with it. And I was fortunate enough to take all the bad situations that were presented to me and find a positive way out. And has things been perfect? No. I mean, it's not perfect for anyone, but I've done enough in my life to feel that, bad circumstances didn't have to be bad forever. You just, you take those circumstances and you figure out, how best to move forward. And I've been blessed to be able to do that. And, like I said, this thing with this brain surgery, I went through, a number of things, and then, we all have these other issues, prostate cancer. I went through that. And I had to go through 40 days of treatments to get rid of the prostate cancer. And what was interesting about that, no one knew that I was going through it. I didn't tell anybody that I was going through those treatments. We were in session at the time. And every day before session started, I went to the Emory Clinic for my treatments. And I would leave there and go to the Capitol. I did not miss one single day of the session while I was going through that. And then on the last day of the session, because I felt like it was important for people to know, I asked the doctors that were treating me to come to the Capitol. And I had, I talked to the Speaker of the House at the time and told him what I had just gone through. And I asked if he would allow the doctors to come on the House floor and address the House of Representatives to tell them how important it was to go get treated, tested, as men, to go get tested, because you can beat prostate cancer if they catch it early enough. And he agreed to do that. And that's when I told people what I was going through. And but I had the doctors come to the House floor and talk to everybody else, because I wanted my colleagues to go get tested.
That's good stuff. That's real good stuff. So let's wrap it up here. One of the things we like to do on this platform, we like to ask our guests, what is the matter of your heart at this time? Like, that it could be politics, it could be something going on in the world, anything.
What's troubling me right now is the world order, or probably the better word is the world lack of order. And Donald Trump, I know you don't want me to use names, but heck, his name is out there.
Use names.
Donald Trump has set the bar so low for holding public office, and set the bar so low for public service, or what gets called public service, and set the bar so low for what is described as family. All of those things, he's just set the bar so low, and people are coming into this line of work, so to speak, at his level. And that troubles me a lot, because we're not going to be successful as a country. We're not going to be successful as families if we allow that bar to be the example that we go by. And unfortunately, you have a guy that says, well, there was some article from years ago where he said he was going to, they asked him if he was going to ever run for president. And his answer was, if I do, I'm going to run as a Republican, because they're stupid enough to vote for me. And he did. He ran as a Republican, and they did vote for him.
I actually seen that video.
You saw that? Yeah. And, so like I said, he set the bar so low. And I'm not saying all Republicans are dumb. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that's what he said.
Right.
And I think that what has happened is that we've gotten away from what can we do best to help, people, to what can we do best to help these political parties. And I just don't feel like that's the way we should be going. We need to be helping people.
One last question here. If there was a book that you could give to people that most influence you, or you feel that would most influence other people, what book would you recommend them to read?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. Now, I think that the Bible is important. I think that there are, and I'm not saying that everything in the Bible is factual. Okay, that's not but if you read it, you can take from it those things that are positive, that motivate you and pump you up, and use it. And then those things that don't, because some of the things that don't make sense, you just discard those things. But I think that's one source of information that I think will help.
Yeah, you can never fail with that. I'd say pretty much the same thing. I don't think everything in there is 100% true. A lot of allegories and soliloquies, but I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater because a lot of valuable information that's stored in that book. So definitely agree with you on that one. So Roger, it's been an amazing journey for you. Thank you for sharing with the platform. Hopefully we could do this again. We got some other topics that we could take and delve deeper into.
Yeah. And we didn't cover a lot of the things, life is, there's a whole lot of other things in there, but I think we covered some, but, I just want to, again, leave people with, don't let others determine your limitations. That's important. Get out there. And if you do one good thing every day, just pick, when you wake up in the morning, you say at the end of this day, I want to have accomplished X, whatever that is. And it could be something minor. It could be that I'm going to go out and feed somebody that's on the street. It could be that I'm going to go find some child and do something good for them. Anything. But at the end of the day, be able to say, here's something I did good today. I think that would be important.
Good stuff. Well, once again, thank you. People out there, is there any way that people can reach you? Like, where would you tell people to reach you or to find out what you're working on, to get involved?
The easiest way is to pick up the phone and call 678-428-8067 or text, and I do respond. May take me a day or so, but I do respond. You can call my office. Go to my website, rogerbruce.net, and you can find all the ways to reach me. And, one last thing too about the event that I do with the kids every year.
You're ready to bring that up, Family Fun Day.
Family Fun Day. We do it the Saturday after Mother's Day. We've done it for 20 years, where I stock the lake over at Sweetwater Creek State Park and fill it up with fish. And we invite the kids to come over, and we give them all fishing poles. I know I've given away 10,000 fishing poles or more over the years. And we work with the kids and show them how to fish. And we get about 1,000 kids out over the course of the day. And that was something that my father never did, take me fishing. And a lot of these kids come out, they're with their moms, and so we show them how to fish. And I'll let you invite them to our walk, though. I'll let you do that.
Yeah. But also, you cutting short the food at the Family Fun Day was.
Oh, yeah, it's lots of food there, too.
I think I ate a ton of fish that day.
Yeah, it's a lot of food, but that's the extra stuff. I do it because I want to teach the kids how to fish, but we do feed everybody.
Definitely. And we do get out and walk. I've joined Roger and his team several times, going for walks on Tuesday mornings out at Sweetwater Creek.
Yeah.
Sweetwater Creek State Park. I don't say that. But you just mention Roger's name when you show up. Let them know that you're walking with us. We start about 9 o'clock.
Yeah, we get there at 8:45. We start walking at 9. We walk for about an hour and a half. It's about a 3-mile walk, through the woods. It's a beautiful sight,
Oh.
You were there, and you and your wife, I think she enjoyed it too.
Oh, yeah. We've actually, like, the first time I went out with you, we actually went out on our own and spent some time out there. So love getting out in nature. It's good for your health for many reasons.
Yeah.
Once again, Roger, thanks for joining us. Thank you for sharing your story. Admire you, my brother. And
thank you.
Talking to you again.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everybody. This is another episode of Matters of the Heart and Soul podcast, where we talk about all things dealing with spirituality, justice, culture, family, male and masculine and feminine energy, and so much more. Uh, until next time, peace.